3, vai transmitir. Eu vou fechar o meu áudio.
Welcome, everybody, to our presentation. I am José Francisco Gonçalves Jr., professor from Brazilian University and president of the Tropical Water Research Alliance. We have some colleagues here in the room to make our presentation about research specific comments, and I will do my overview about our organization, and after my speech I will get word out to Sergio and after to Alan and go on in this step. So Alan, let's for our presentation. My initial talk about our organization. The next one, please. We would like to say, who are we? We are doing in this moment in our organization. We have the landscape use the watershed as a life library and the history of the people that live around in this watershed. We have some issues that we would like to put. The next, Alan, please. Like that. Our work will done by shared experience, research and information, non-negotiable ethical principles, respecting collective decision, where the good of the majority will be the best decision, interpersonal relationships with generosity and attention to the needs of society, careful and efficient in the use of public and private resources, building a shared, integrated, and accessible database for all, and moving forward and integrate manner and balanced with the regional headquarters, leaving no mistake. Next, please. Our goals working for biodiversity conservation, helping in environmental solution for society, developing and of restoring program for repairing zone, improving relationship among science, society, and decision makers, and training and improvement of professionals, technicians, and students. Next, please. Therefore, please, the Tropical Water Research Alliance, TWRA, is to develop environmental technologies and methodological support for the development of integrated and sustainable management of tropical watershed through staff training and mitigation of the effects of the environmental degradation and climate change. Please. We born it in October 16, 2020. We have association performed for many research, and we have rules specific to spread our organization in general parts of our country. You make a relationship with other countries, other groups of research and companies, legacy corporation, NGOs, etc. We have to get together in collaboration during our existence. Next, please. The Alliance will perform it for 12 states from Brazil, with regional headquarters contribute like that bottom-up effect. We have the base of the Alliance researching each state from Brazil and make matching with research from Australia and another parts of the country. We have our objective to improve in the South Hemisphere research, to spread our relationship, protocols, experience, good things that search in the Brazil and Australia to share with research in different parts of South Hemisphere. Now we have more 6 headquarters region in negotiation in Brazil, perform the most of part of Brazil included in the alliance, performs at the moment 18 states, 224 research, over 100 institutions included in the alliance at the moment. Around 38 programs post-graduations involved in the actions of the alliance. We have make a professionalization with different parts of Brazil, with different students, with different characteristics and included a diversity of persons from Brazil in the process of the alliance. Next, please. Our organization has a direction. We have 4 people: president, vice president, chief financial officer, and general secretary. Next. And our bottom-up included the regional headquarters. The chief financial officer have a manager, project manager associated together, and the presidents have 3 managers performance by course, webinars, social, publishing, and editoration, and foreign relationship. And the general secretary included executive secretary, communication, and sites and social networking. And the last one, manager, research and innovation. We will talk today about this manager involved, included in the presidents of the alliance. Next, please. We have many instruments to make matching with Australians, like that our proposal had financial support from CNPq to make matching and relationship, improve our collaboration with Australians. And the next one, from the Australian government, we have our other proposal, like that Koala, Council of Australia Latin America Relationship, with give support for my colleagues from the Victoria University to make matching with relationship with Brazilians. So we have money from Brazil and money from Australia to improve our collaboration in different moments of this interaction. We are improving our relationship to make a new protocol, scientific protocols, and development strategies to conservation of the biodiversity. So this is my overview for the how the alliance, structuring of the alliance, and we would like to talk more about our strategy for developing the research in the alliance. I think that Sergio, our colleague of the CIRAT, that made the invitation for us, will talk.
Hello, Julio. Can you hear me?
And then Sergio get out for Alo. Sergio, could you talk to us something?
Okay, good afternoon, good morning for you. Here in Dakar, we are in the... So, invited to organize this session, this webinar in the forum. Here we have information from the executive secretariat that the forum would be mainly virtual. By the beginning of the year, they changed the ideas and decided to make a physical event, considering the condition of COVID getting a little bit better by the beginning. So we are here participating on many agendas related to South-South cooperation on the theme of water. We consider that a TWRA alliance for waters is really that will similar problem in the south, and buy the solution from separate areas and having this tropical perspective. I think it's for the countries that's part of the planet. So I'd like to take the opportunity to be here and say that great honor. Agenda of South-South cooperation is a long-term agenda that we are just starting. We launched yesterday here in Dakar that TWRA organized in partnership with Federal Senate of Brazil, National Water Agency, and UNESCO. Inc. has the objective of acting the Brazilian version of the World Water Forum that has as theme sharing water was the theme of the forum. Theme of the edition here, of the forum: sustainable development for peace, security for development and peace. I'm sorry, security for development and peace. We try to do is try to make a bridge between the edition from Brazil and the edition of Senegal. The new that I would like to speak was announced. The official announcement is going to happen tomorrow. Edition, the 10th edition of the happen in India, in 2 years time probably, so in 2024. So have this possibility of having some launch and having these important events as a reference for the that we are going to do years, and also highlighting the importance of alternative forum here. Official forum yesterday. Tomorrow we launch this book, alternative forum, that will presents a very important angle of the question. That is the angle of importance of as a right to citizens, but also to nature. That's example as well. I thank you, Junior, for the opportunity to be here, and I will stay listening to the colleagues as I can here.
Thank you for your talk, Sergio, and thank you for your talk, Junior. So my talk will be about research priorities of the Tropical Water Research Alliance. My name is Dr. Alan Tonin. I am research manager of the Alliance. In this presentation, I will briefly show why the TWRA was created, that is, the context behind its creation, its goals, and then I will introduce what we call the key themes for research with some specific examples of running and future actions. So, first, some information of the context behind the Alliance. Tropical regions, including Brazil, as you may know, are living in an era where multiple stressors, such as pollution by nutrients, sewage, emerging contaminants, and fragmentation by dams and biodiversity loss, impair freshwater ecosystems. But associated to these threats, it is the low and insufficient budget of developing countries especially countries in the global south, to protect fresh waters. And the financial support to conservation may be even lower globally if we consider the economical impacts of COVID pandemic. Finally, especially in Brazil, but not restricted to, there is a lack of comprehensive scientific information about fresh waters, and policy decisions are not evidence-based. And it is in this context that the Alliance has some goals. So the first goal is to produce and spread scientific-based information in the form of scientific synthesis, opinion papers, original research, or doing applied projects, such as one recent project we have in collaboration with the Brazilian government to restore the riparian vegetation of streams. We also search for collaborations in Brazil and with institutions of other countries, especially in the global south. Currently, at the international level, we have collaborations with researchers in Australia, as Junior told. Another goal is to provide solutions for environmental problems through evidence-based recommendations. And finally, we also want to increase the employment of researchers with different expertise and from different areas of knowledge. So here you can see the 8 key themes of the Alliance, where the research initiatives occur. Among these themes, there are 5 main themes, which are in green circles, and 3 transversal themes in yellow circles. Each of these themes has one person in charge to coordinate the actions. So now I will present some research examples within these themes. So to the first theme, which is entitled Balancing Water Needs for Humans and Nature, I have selected as an example the research area of environmental flows. And basically, one very relevant question to be answered within this area is, how much water does a river or a stream or wetland need? And not only need to maintain its biota and process under natural conditions, but also water to support human needs. And to the second key theme, one of our research priorities is to understand how hydropower dams, both small and large hydropower plants, impact the biota and the process within tropical ecosystems. And to the third theme, we want to map freshwater biodiversity hotspots in tropical systems, and especially in the context of multiple stressors. And we believe this information would be very relevant to conservation or mitigation of anthropogenic pressures. And the fourth theme, which is entitled Social and Cultural Dimensions of Water, this is a transversal theme, and one of its main priority is to understand how human flow relationships, such as those related to human well-being and cultural identity, can be incorporated into river management. And this question is very important as it connects directly with at least 4 other key themes of the Alliance. And the last example is the key theme, Modeling and Prediction, which is a transversal theme to 5 other themes of the Alliance. And in this example, we want to model and predict how will be water security in a changing and dynamic environment. And finally, from now on, my colleagues will provide further details about the ongoing activities, collaborations, and future directions of 3 of our key teams in TWRA. So, the next presenter will be Dr. Paula dos Reis Oliveira, who will talk about one of our key teams entitled Conservation Planning and Biodiversity Assessment. So please, Paula.
Thank you, Alan. So good morning, good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to be part of this team and to present here today. So my name is Paula, and I'm a key team coordinator working with conservation planning and biodiversity assessment. I am a postdoc at University of São Paulo in Brazil. Next. Next, please. I've been working with several topics in freshwater. So I started working with the impact of hydropower dams in Brazil related to changes in limnology and zooplankton community. I also have a strong background in freshwater ecology, stream ecology, so investigating the impact of land use changes in streams. And I've worked a bit as a manager in the municipality of São Paulo, and at this time, I realized the importance of working with applied ecology and our necessity of understanding better ecology to restore impacted ecosystems. So I developed a PhD in Amsterdam, in the University of Amsterdam, focused on river restoration and how we can improve the quality of freshwater water bodies. Next, please. So why we are talking about conservation and biodiversity? It's because it's an urgent theme. So several international organizations have been pointing it out, such as IPBES, that has several reports that show the declines in nature, and freshwater are especially impacted by different pressures. So I can say that we have in freshwater ecosystem, there is not only direct pressures in the water body per se, but also pressures that come from the land use changes. So it makes this environment even more impacted. Next. So international organizations are aware of that and have plans to solve this problem. So an important one is the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, where water is seated in at least 2 of the goals, the goal 6 and the goal 15. But what we realized recently as society is that to achieve this goal, conservation is not enough. We really have to restore degraded ecosystem. So this decade, the current decade that started from last year until 2030, is the decade of ecosystem restoration. Next. In the tropics, this problem is even stronger because we host the majority of the global biodiversity. So in the tropics, we have 16 out of the 25 designated biodiversity hotspots. And in Brazil, we have some data showing that most of nature conservation is focused on terrestrial ecosystems. So we have few research in freshwater and also in the tropics. So it makes our topic of biodiversity and conservation planning even more relevant. Next, please. So what is freshwater biodiversity? So it includes many groups of organisms that goes from microorganisms such as bacteria and fungi to macroinvertebrates like insects and vertebrates such as fish. This biodiversity is very important for the functioning of the ecosystem. A good example is decomposition. So this species plays an important role on fragmenting and decomposing organic matter. And this is also an important example of ecosystem services, because this is the basis for nutrient cycling in freshwater. So biodiversity is per se very important and relevant for conservation, but also because it links with important ecosystem services for humanity. But where to investigate and research biodiversity then? We have several types of freshwater ecosystems. Here I point out just the most common ones that are rivers and streams, lakes and reservoirs and wetlands. And in Brazil, we have 5 different biomes. So next, please. So to properly study and plan the conservation of these different freshwater groups in different freshwater types, in different biomes, is very complex. To solve this problem, next, the TWRA has this strategy of working as a network. So we have in our key team a network of researchers working with biodiversity, ecosystem functioning, and ecosystem services. Next. And our main objective is to undertake aquatic biodiversity assessment. So as Alan said, mapping this biodiversity and determine the structural and functional patterns. Next. Basically, we have 2 main objectives. One that's mapping the biodiversity, and to do so, we have to gather and organize data on taxonomy, traits, data on ecosystem functioning and ecosystem services. And then the next logical step would be to use this data for planning, conservation, and restoration. And this is our second objective that is divided in 2 points. That's to develop modeling and upscaling to prioritize conservation and restoration areas, but also to create, test, and monitor measures that can properly conserve and restore these aquatic ecosystems. Next, please. So actually, we are in our conservation and planning biodiversity assessment key team, we are working with 30 researchers. These researchers are distributed among different states of the country, but the research that they are developing cover all biomes in Brazil, all that 5 biomes that I showed previously, and also all freshwater types. We have been working with different groups of organisms, macroinvertebrates, fungi, fish, phytoplankton and periphyton, zooplankton and macrophytes, and also with ecosystem functioning. Some examples are decomposition, metabolism, and nutrient cycling. We have meetings every bi-weekly, and in these meetings, we have one member that does his or her presentation. So the research that they have been developing and how their research can contribute to the topic of the team. So how it can contribute to better conserve and restore freshwater ecosystem. We have been also working on a scientific manuscript where we focus on understand where we are in terms of biodiversity in Brazil. So we want to understand the status quo of biodiversity in Brazil, in freshwaters. Next, please. So I think from these meetings, we realized some relevant topics for biodiversity teams, and I would like to point out some of them. So we see a very important necessity to improve our taxonomy of different groups. So we have to have more research and investments in taxonomy, because this is the basis for understanding the traits, so the traits of the different species, but also to understand the function of the species in the ecosystem. So this is very the basic of the biodiversity. And from that, we could better understand the limits of species for flow, for example, and therefore better understand the ecological flow, how we can give recommendations for ecological flows for different species. Another important issue that come up from these meetings is the importance of increase the latitudinal relevance of research in tropical freshwater. So once we are better organized, the next step would be having research design and protocols that we could apply in different regions in Brazil, but also in other countries. Nowadays, we are consolidating our national and international partnership. The international is basically with Australia. And then for that, we have the profile of our researchers, where we are, which institution they have been working, and their research interests. And also the institutional structure of these researchers for internship for both students and researchers in general. So with that, I finish my presentation, and thank you for your time, for your attention. And I would like to introduce the next presenter, that's Dr. Roselene Luciana de la Riva, that's the coordinator of the key team addressing fragmentation and restoration of river connectivity.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Vasiliki Bolomitis, and I am going to present a little bit about our key theme, which is addressing fragmentation and restoration of river connectivity. Next, please. I am a professor at the Federal Institute of Science, Education and Technology of São Paulo, and my expertise is in integrated water resources management and resilience and adaptation to climate change. My PhD was in under a co-tutel agreement between Unicamp, the State University of Campinas, and Swinburne University of Technology in Australia. And it was about the flood susceptibility in the municipality or the IFSBs, where we have several cases of fragmentation. But I'm here on the behalf of our team coordinator, who is Professor de la Riva. She is a professor at the State University of Western Paraná, and her expertise is in fragmentation by dams and connectivity on river and stream fish ecology. She works on a group regarding the trophic structure of fish assemblages under reservoir influence in Iguaçu River, which is one of our significant rivers here in Brazil. Well, I'm going to start my presentation pointing out a little bit about what occurs to our river systems, which is the fragmentation and river, the effect on the river connectivity. We highlight that there are several hydroelectric plants, which we call small hydroelectric plants, and they, even though they are small and their impact is much lower than it would be when we compare them to larger plants, they still cause a huge effect on the fragmentation of water courses, regardless of having or not having water diversion in rivers. Next, please. Well, the scenario is very worrying because we have a huge number of rivers located worldwide where these plants are located and these ecosystems have been highly impacted. But we have a scenario that is much worse in the southern hemisphere, where the neotropical regions are located. So these are expected to be highly affected by the future events. Next, please. Yes, thank you. As you can see, we have many hydroelectric power plants located in Brazil, particularly in the south and southeastern part of the country. But we see that these are the hydroelectric plants that are now operating, right? In the next slide, we demonstrate a huge worry about the ones that have been currently planned. So they are in the licensing process, or they have been designed, and we see that they are spreading towards the northwestern part of Brazil, Tocantins and Amazonas river basins. And these areas, as the word knows, are very rich in ecosystems. So we are very worried that if studies are not well managed in these areas, they can compromise significantly the ecosystems located in these basins. So here we show this panorama, right, where about 186 out of 422 ecoregions have been impacted, and they have this occurrence here in Brazil, at least 430 of them. All right, continue, please. So here we can see that there is a high biological diversity, but they are impacted to this spatial redistribution of species, and the main impacts are the biodiversity loss, the migratory species loss, and the invasive species increase. In this study, we can see the impacted areas, right? And this gradient color showed the increase of impacts worldwide. Here we can see that in Brazil, we have many hydroelectric plants because this is our main source of energy. About 67% of our energy matrix in Brazil is due to the hydroelectric power plants. But they were very impacted in the last 2 years because of the severe droughts, which were one of the most significant one in 100 years. And they did not only impact the fragmentation of the rivers because of the implementation of these hydroelectric plants, but because of these droughts, we had a problem with our agro production. We had a problem with the transport responsible for the connection of this agro production in the country and also to the other Latin American southern countries. So the climate change effects are making the situation much worse, not only because of the loss of biodiversity, but also regarding all the impacts that are mainly related to human beings, to our survival. So the main challenges of our studies, of our areas here, the area that we are related to, is that we have to have significant findings, and sometimes we do not have available data, so we need to have good and trustworthy models to work with about these channel changes, the impacts on the fragmentation in the geomorphological parts of the river. The Brazilian rivers that are in the semi-arid, for example, São Francisco River, and the wettest part of our country, also including Paraná River, because they have totally distant features. We cannot compare these two basins that I'm talking to you about. They have different aspects, both the ecosystem and also the geomorphological are totally different. So we have different models to process information about them. We have several findings on fluvial adjustment in Brazilian rivers, and we've been working very hard on that. Several universities here in Brazil, and also at TWRA. And another part of the challenge is the impact caused due to the synergies of dams in cascades. So if we make part of that synergism worse, it's going to impact the whole system, right? And we also have divergent results coming from researches due to the successful or not successful fish passages. These are our challenges because we want to make them successful. We want to reestablish the connectivity in these rivers. Our key theme is responsible for the fragmentation and restoration of river connectivity. For that, we want to process all the available database and use that to articulate with the different stakeholders. So we have researchers working for and with the society for the decision-making process. Our team has a group that pretends, right, that intends to integrate databases regarding the Brazilian energy metrics and the potential uses of alternative energy. For example, the wind energy and the photovoltaic energy. We would like to identify the priority areas for conservation and also restoration of river water courses to promote the system's connectivity. We want to contribute for the formulation of public policies to reduce the fragmentation by or caused by hydroelectric power plants. We want to reestablish this debate, reestablish connectivity through the public debate, as well as strengthening the interaction among the researchers and different stakeholders, contribute to the participatory monitoring actions with the community, and also spread knowledge about all the studies areas and contribute with other studies of transversal areas, for instance, right? In our group, we have about 30 researchers. And it's very interesting because we have researchers coming from the different areas in Brazil. Even though we are a continental country, we have researchers coming from all of the regions, right? And it's very interesting because we can see the different ecosystem types spread in Brazil. We have groups related to hydrology, geomorphology, aquatic ecology, limnology, riparian vegetation, and so on. So our meeting occurs every fortnight. We have already developed a presentation for the national workshop, and now we are working on a paper regarding water policies. So the perspectives of our group are to consolidate national and international partnership, as Dr. Paula mentioned before. For that, we analyze all the researchers' profiles. We see how we can promote this matchmaking with these researchers, right? And then we have these shared courses which are related to the perspectives and challenges of each key theme. And the relevant topics for fragmentation, restoration of river connectivity key theme are regarding the experiences in restoring connectivity in already impacted ecosystems, but also simulating future impacts of the hydroelectric plants that are currently being planned, that have not been implemented yet. We would also like to have opportunities to exchange experiences across different scales and tropical river systems peculiarities. We want to increase latitudinal relevance of research in tropical freshwater. So this is one of our main purposes here at the Fórum, to invite other colleagues located in different countries in tropical areas, so that we could exchange experience, and maybe our experience could contribute with your local ecosystem, and also the other way around. And we need to have this contribution because these different perspectives are very progressive, and they can be very effective towards the improvement of the fragmentation and the river systems restoration. Now, I would like first to thank you very much for the opportunity of showing a little bit of what has been done in our key theme, and introduce my colleague, Dr. Camila Aida Campos. She's going to talk to you a little bit about the improving tools for freshwater monitoring, assessing, and reporting. Thank you so much, and have a great day.
Okay, thanks, Vasi. Well, good day, everyone. Vasi has already introduced me. So my name is Camila, and it's a big pleasure for me to be here talking about something I deeply studied the last years in my PhD, that is about improving tools for freshwater monitoring, assessment, and reporting. In my PhD, I've studied some ways to improve the freshwater management tools available in Brazil, and I developed that at the University of Brasilia. And I also spent 1 year in Australia at Griffith University, already in the context of the partnership established by the Tropical Alliance. And now I'm the coordinator of this transversal key team at the Tropical Alliance. Next, Alan, please. So I think it's a consensus that monitoring is an essential tool for environmental resources management, not only because the anthropogenic actions are increasingly modifying the ecosystems, but also to access what we have, since much of them is not even known. But to put in place a good monitoring program, especially in relation to fresh water, there is a number of challenges we must face. In Brazil, for example, we have a very large territory, including 6 biomes, each one with their specific characteristics, and each biome presenting different ecosystems and behaviors. So this makes any attempt at standardization a major challenge. So in addition, another challenge specific to Brazil and some other countries is the absence of legal support for an integrated monitoring involving biological and socioeconomic aspects. Currently, the focus of freshwater monitoring is on physical and chemical aspects of water, which may be sufficient to guarantee good water quality for human consumption, but neglect many other uses that are expected of the water for the ecosystem. So another important aspect is the reduced social participation in the water monitoring and management process. Although some watershed committees have already a strong role in Brazil, the social participation in monitoring process is almost null, being restricted to specific environmental education programs. Next, please, Alan. As in other tropical countries, there are many studies in Brazil that demonstrate the potential of biomonitoring in the most diverse ecosystems and biomes. But due to the territorial extension and tropical diversity, in addition to the very reduced financial support, there is still a great gap of information, whether spatial, temporal, or in relation to each biological group. So there is still a big potential of research and production of information. As most of the information about aquatic ecosystems is linked to universities, research centers, and institutes, there is a great dispersion of data storage without compilation. Much information is restricted, for example, to the academic universe. And a lot of information from currently monitoring practice by government agencies is also restricted to internal use. So what we have today is a lot of isolated databases for specific use. There is no integration, sharing, and standardization for a common use. And to finish our list of challenges, the lack of interactions between stakeholders become a major impediment to an efficient and integrated monitoring. Environmental elements are still treated as isolated things. For example, water and aquatic biota, or water resources and terrestrial resources. How to guarantee water quality and quantity if we forget to look at the ecosystem as a whole? So from the point of view of the sustainable development, this is not possible. Next, please. So the greatest set of collaborative networking is the diversity of lines of action to which the members belong. In our group, for example, we have professionals carrying out research with macroinvertebrates, fish. Look, these numbers under the figures means the number of people working with each group. So fish, algae, macrophytes, and others. And in addition to biological groups, we also have people involved with land use, sewage release, sediments, socioeconomic aspects, and etc. And also people work with lakes, rivers, streams, coastal zones. It means many kinds of environment. Thus, our range of topics expands, and we can join efforts to have a more comprehensive overview of the aquatic ecosystems, aquatic environments. In addition to the diversity of lines of work, we also have a diversity in the spatial distribution, as already mentioned by my colleagues before. So we have members working in the most diverse Brazilian biomes facing very different realities. All of this creates the perfect environment for the expansion of the knowledge through the union of knowledge. Next, furthermore, our intention is to expand our relations with other countries, as is the case of Australia, where we already have a coordinator for this thematic line, which is Professor Alicia Holland. Next, please, Alan. So, what are the perspectives for our work within the Tropical Alliance? So together, we intended to develop protocols aimed at an integrated monitoring of aquatic environments. And these protocols aim not only to standardize methods, but also to facilitate the access by managers, which would have adequate tools to be used in water management. To do this, in addition to integrating researchers, the Alliance seeks conversations and projects with federal agencies, such as the National Water Agencies, ENA, and the Ministry of Regional Development, and also with local agencies, watershed committees, and councils. Next, another important objective for us is data integration. We are evaluating possibilities for acquiring a database where we could integrate all available data. The most likely path to reach this goal is a partnership to some existing database. Thus, the group would have a place with standardized, organized, decentralized data. Next. It's also very important to work on the reporting of information. If you want to reach society and managers, it's necessary to develop tools and protocols that facilitate the understanding of technical terms, that facilitate the reproduction of methodologies, that incorporate in people the idea of the importance of monitoring, of knowing about our waters. So another perspective is the strengthening of international cooperation, especially with tropical countries, because we believe the exchange of international experience can lead to common solutions to similar problems. Also, it helps the least favored countries in some issue. For example, Australia already has its database well established. This is not a problem for them, but it's a problem for Brazil. So Brazil can benefit from this knowledge to improve its condition in this point, right? One more important perspective is to encourage society's participation in the process of freshwater monitoring. Our colleague Juliana is not here today, but she coordinates a specific thematic line on citizen science. And working together with that thematic line, our intention is to bring society into monitoring. It's to engage and empower society through knowledge. But in addition to the educational function, it has already been proven that the data generated by the monitoring carried out by society can be used with confidence for decision making. So society, in addition to get knowledge, also would get an important role in freshwater monitoring in management. Finally, a great potential of the Tropical Alliance as a social organization is to promote articulation between stakeholders. We know universities are essential in developing researches, models, indexes to produce knowledge about biodiversity, water quality, environmental behaviors. Environmental management agencies may host database, write down the legislation, and practice investigations, while society is fundamental in execute good practices and to contribute with the traditional knowledge. So working together, these and other actors would be promoting more efficient monitoring and management of water. So we have a long way ahead, but we also have willing people and a lot of willpower. So we invite anyone who wants to join us to do it. It will be a great pleasure to have all of you in our team. Next, Alan. And here is our contacts. So please feel free to contact us. And thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you, Camila. And thank you to all my colleagues who presented and who participated in this webinar. Now I have the pleasure to open for questions. So I would like to propose that, oh, one question. So one of our colleagues have a question about the ongoing collaborations or ongoing actions in terms of community participation in Brazil. So before I answer this question, I would like to ask if Camila wants to talk about the social participation, or if you, Camila, knows any of the joint activities regarding Juliana key team coordination.
We are just in the beginning of this partnership, so we started to talk about this integration, but no, we don't have any any project yet, but we are on the way for that. So we are participating on each other's conferences and meetings to exchange experience and try to develop something together.
Yeah, thank you, Camila. I think one important point to call the attention is that the alliance is very young, very young. I can told you that it is in its infancy, and so many of our intentions are still at the beginning. So we are working hard to get funds and to enlarge our collaborations within Brazil and with other partners in, especially as I told you before, in the global south, and especially with tropical countries. Someone else of the webinar wants to comment? Anything?
Yes, I agree with you, Ellen. I think we are in our infancy still. So the first meeting that we had with the Brazilian researchers were last August. So it's less than 1 year that we have been trying to organize ourselves. And it's a hard work because Brazil is a very big country and we have many barriers, let's say, and also all this COVID context was not very easy for anyone, but we are progressing quite well and connecting ourselves better and also with our international partners. So yeah, I think we are in a good way.
Thank you, Paula. Dr. Vasilik wants to comment about the courses that occur in 2020.
Yeah, it's important to highlight that while TWA was still being organized, there was an online course amid the COVID pandemic situation, and it was promoted by TWRA and the IFSP and the Embassy of Australia in Brazil. And the aim was to improve the knowledge of all national members of watershed committees so that they could make more effective decisions about their specific catchment And it was done actually before TWRA was established. It was right on the way that the directors were organizing the official implementation of the alliance, but the alliance was already working towards the benefits of the community. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further question? So I really want to thank you all for your attention and for your time. It will be a real pleasure to coordinate this webinar in the presence of such a high quality colleagues who are coordinating these three key themes of the Alliance. And I want to highlight that these three key themes are just an example of the potential of the Alliance, because as I told you, we have 8 key themes currently at the Alliance, and our intention here is just to present an example of the potential of the Alliance in terms of collaboration, research activities, and when I refer to the scientific or research activities, I want to explain that we believe that the science are the spine of our actions, but we are not restricted to these research activities or scientific activities. Oh, one question. I think this question is more directly to Camila. So the question is from Cristiano Júnior dos Santos Feitosa, who wants to know if there is some perspective or tool to help to unify the databases or hydric information, or only perspectives to do that is with the collaboration with public institutions.
Cristiano, we are trying many ways. We are talking with public institutions like the National Water Agency, the ANA, but also private institutions as well. And we don't have the right way at the moment, but we're trying to find this way, because there are many possibilities. It's not necessary to start a database from the beginning. It's hard, it's difficult. Everyone who works with a database knows it's a hard thing to do. So the likely way is use some database already existed and to adapt it to our necessities, not only regarding to hydrological data, as I said, but also biodiversity and other topics that we are interested in, because it's not necessary only for my key team, but for example, Vasilik said about the importance of a database for them, and Paula as well. So it's a thing would be useful for everyone. So we need to think something big, and to create and develop something big, it's hard. So the likely way is use some database already existed and try to adapt to our reality.
Can I add something, Alan?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, for the biodiversity topics. We are also in contact with other international databases. So, for example, there is one European database named Freshwater info.com, something like that, that's focused on European biodiversity information, but they are interested also to include tropical information. But so there are databases organized that we could join, but first we have to do our internal work that's really gathering this information and providing this database. But I think there is good possibilities, and we are in the way, and I think creating this network and having this network strong is the first step.
Thank you, Camila and Paula, and thank you, Cristiano, for your question. I hope the answer from Camila and Paula help you to understand what are our situation in terms of initiatives. If you have any further questions or need a deeper explanation, you can ask again, please. So the next question is from Marcos Ferraz Jr., who is asking if TWRA has another ongoing or planned collaboration with other tropical countries beyond Australia, and if there are other interested institutions. So I will start answering these question, and my answer is that we have not searched for other collaborations beyond Australia yet, because as Camila and Paula said, we are structuring the organization and the scientific research inside TWRA, mainly in Brazil, and in the 2020 and 2021, we have dedicated a lot of time to build projects in collaboration with the Australian, and just in this year, in 2022, we have been granted with these projects that Junior show, with the project of CNPq and the Koala initiative. So we are just in the beginning, but as all my colleagues make clear, we are with the doors open to all other countries to make these collaborations happen. So someone wants to talk or explain another detail? So I believe many other countries will join us in this alliance in the pace they knows about us, because as I told you, we are just beginning our activities, and so I think it's very normal to have some delay between the development of activities and the spread of information or being knowledge by others. I think it's a normal process, and I think the pandemic and the difficult to go in abroad is something that it's a big challenge to our institution, of course, have some good points that help us to build something faster. But I think this difficult to travel abroad is a challenge at this moment, at least. So if no one has a question, I would like to thank you all for your questions, your time, and I would like to end this webinar, and hope all of you have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, Ronald.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Great day.